Hello, friends, and today we are going to be comparing fractions. It would be amazing if you get a paper and pencil and follow along. You can draw as I'm drawing and work with me. 2/2 or 2/3. We need to compare them. So I'm going to go ahead and use, I'll try a circle shape for them. It's pretty difficult to cut a circle perfectly into thirds, but we can do it using a kind of like a peace sign here. 1/3, 2/3. This represents 2/3. And this circle, which is the same size as this one, is going to represent half. 1/2, but it says 2/2. 2/2 is a whole. So 2/2 is greater than or less than 2/3. They both have 2 in the numerator, but the denominators are different. This denominator shows that this one is broken in half, and this denominator shows that this is broken into thirds. And we can see that halves are actually bigger pieces, but we also know that 2/2 is equal to 1 whole. 1 whole. So 2/2 is greater than 2/3. Do you agree? When it's your turn, you can work with me and draw things on your paper, and it should help you. It's much easier to draw on paper than it is to use the computer to make drawings, but you can do both. So here we have 2/6 and 2/8. I'm going to use squares to prove my work. You can do the same and draw it with me. 2/6. So this first square I'm going to partition into sixths. I'm first going to partition it into thirds, and then I'll cut that in half to make sixths. 1 6 2 6 3 6 4 6 5 6 6 6. Okay, and the next one will be partitioned into eighths. So I'll cut it in fourths, and then cut each fourth in half to make eighths. Now I'm going to shade. They both have 2, which means they both have 2 in the numerator. 2 parts are shaded in. 1 6, 2 6. 1/8, 2/8. They look pretty close, but you can see that the eighths are a little bit less than the 6. 2/6 and compared with 2/8. Now we know when the numerators are the same, we can look at the denominators. Bigger denominator means smaller piece sizes. So 2/6 is greater. Next, we're comparing 3/6 and 3/8. I'm going to use a number line this time as my drawing to compare them. I'll start by drawing 2 number lines that are exactly the same length. You can do the same thing with me. 3/6, so we're going to cut the first line into sixths. I'm going to first cut it in thirds and then cut each third in half to make sixths. 1 6, 2 6, 3 6, 4 6, 5 6, 6 6. Now we'll cut this one into eighths, half, fourths, and then eighths. 1/8, 2/8, 3/8. Okay, so now that I've looked at it, I can see that 3/6 comes here on the line and 3/8 is here. So which is larger when I'm comparing them? Well, 3/6 is closer to 6/6, which is the whole, and 3/8 is further away from 8/8 than 3/6. You can see that this one's closer to the whole. 3 out of 6 is actually halfway. It's greater than 3 out of 8. We can also see they both have a 3 in the numerator, so we can look in the denominator. Smaller denominator, bigger piece sizes. Bigger denominator, smaller piece sizes, and you can see that 1/8, the unit fraction, is smaller than the unit fraction 1/6, which is a little bit bigger. Let's go ahead and do the next one. 3/4 or 3/3. I think I'm going to use long rectangles for this one. And I'm going to line them right up underneath each other. The first one is going to be cut in fourths, and the next one will be cut in thirds. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 3/4. 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. 3/3. That's a whole. 3/4 and 3/3. 3/3 is greater than 3/4. 3/3 is actually equal to 1 whole. 3/4 is almost a whole, but it was missing one more fourth to make it whole. 4/4 versus 4/6. Let's see. Let's use circles this time. I'll partition the first one to fourths because the denominator is 4. And to partition a circle into sixes, we need to do an X first and then a line through the middle. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4. That's a whole. 1 whole. 4/6, 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6. You can see that 1 whole is greater. 4 out of 4 is greater than 4 out of 6. 4/8 versus 4/6. We can use squares to do this one, or rectangles. I'll try to draw 2 same-size rectangles when I'm comparing fractions. The first one will be partitioned into eighths because we have an 8 in the denominator. The second one will be partitioned into 6 because we have a 6 in the denominator. They both have 4 in the numerator, and you can see that if we look at the denominators, the bigger denominator has slightly smaller pieces. 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8. 4/8 also shows half. 4/6, 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6. You can see that's more than half. 4/8 versus 4/6. 4/6 is greater than, and 4/8 is less than 4/6. All right, now you'll be able to try some on your own.